Yeah, okay, Joe's muted. I'll kick it off. Welcome everyone along to our ISSF coaching webinar or Zoom meeting tonight. Before we welcome our special guest, and we've got some background music noise coming in there somewhere.
You figure out who to start? No, not yet.
Somebody's not muted. Well, firstly, welcome President of Pistol Australia, Ray Andrews, on the line there from Perth. Welcome, Ray. And Vladimir Galiobovic, the head pistol coach in Australia here. Welcome along. And Joe, our national development coach. And of course, welcome to everybody else. I'll start off, I'll welcome Dr. Zeljko Todorovic, prefers to be called Toto. He's the head pistol instructor at the ISSF Academy. He holds an honorary doctorate for service as a sport and is the director of the ISSF Accredited Training Centre in Bar, Montenegro. He's come all the way from Montenegro to be with us tonight. He was the 1990 to 2000 coach of the Danish pistol team. 2004 to 2008, he was director and national coach of the French pistol team. 2009 to 2012 Olympic Games, he was the senior advisor for the Italian national pistol team. And 2013 to current, he's the Olympic pistol coach for the Finnish national team. He's got 3 Olympics under his belt. His athletes have been multiple World Cup winners, multiple European champions, world record holders, and Olympic medalists. Welcome, Toto.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you, and thank you for invitation. If you don't mind, Mike was just giving part of my biography that probably he found somewhere on the internet that was not updated. The last one, I believe you said I was national coach of the Finnish team. After that, I took over Turkish national team. And my last assignment was as a national coach for the Russian pistol team, which I ran till last World Championships. And then I decided to retire. It was 30 years of the coaching service. And to be precise, it was 7 Olympic Games, all the way from 1992. But anyway, I'm very, very honored that you invited me for this meeting. And I'm not sure if I can contribute anything today, my time, or this evening, your time. But anyway, it would be nice to have a small chat across this panel. I've got some questions from Joe. I don't know if everybody has.
I'll ask you those questions if that's okay with you. We'll get a bit more background on you, and then we might go into the question and answer side of it, and we'll give everyone an opportunity also to ask you some questions.
Right.
So 7 Olympic Games, coaching lots of national teams, and obviously retired as an international coach, but you're still holding that position there at the ISSF Academy. So you're still influencing coaches who will go on and do hopefully great things in the sport?
To be absolutely correct, I'm not anymore in official capacity as a director of the academy, which I was for 10 years. New administration has some new ideas, but yes, I'm involved in the next step of development of the academy. And I think it has been an ongoing process since new administration came in and took over. So I believe that new format of the education will be launched by January next year. There is a group of colleagues that are working on the new material. We outlined the system, and I'm not really sure how much I'm entitled to talk about it, but I guess what you've seen from educational reform plan, which was published on ISF website, there will be new titles for the coaches. The old system was like CBA. Now it's gonna be turned into national coaches, international coaches, and I don't remember really the third one correct. all of them who earned previously various degrees, they will be automatically upgrading to the new terminology or new titles. And those who will be starting education, they'll go through new format of education. So basically to say we can't invent new things in shooting as a sport. Of course, we can try to get updated about certain progress or certain details, but the basics are there.
Yeah, it's really important, not just in pistol shooting, but sport generally, that you have a good foundation of coaches, and then you can start developing athletes. And one of the questions we'll get to shortly is certainly the development of junior athletes and how important it is to capture the younger people or entry-level people into the sport and give them those good foundations.
Kind of coincidence. Last evening, let's say in some later hours, I met with the sport director of the Serbian Shooting Federation. Not the sport director of the national team, but the sport director of the federation. And he's a bit younger fellow, very, very good one to say at doing his job. And actually, we were discussing exactly this topic. Junior development or any youth development. Maybe it will be kind of shocking what I will say, but I hope we can talk over about that, and maybe I can make myself more clear if the start will be, let's say, surprising. Some years back, I don't remember exactly how many years ago, when I opened my club for the second time back in Montenegro. It was existing somewhere from 80s, I believe, and then it was shut down during the civil war in ex-Yugoslavia, and I re-established, I don't remember exactly, honestly, but in 2009 or 10 or something like that. And we start, it was exclusively pistol club. But we established some system that I believe should be put in place, and trying to make an kind of record time from a completely new beginner to an let's say a medium international shooter. And our goal was 3 years. And I will make it short. We did it.
That's a very intensive, from starting pistol shooting to being international competitor in 3 years, that's a very compressed and tight time frame.
Yes, it is. But don't think that it was really, how to say, sadistic training.
No,
not at all. And of course, I'm willing to share that with you, my experience, but also theory behind that. Yes, we had a girl, not only one, but I speak about the particular one, and just a little bit under 3 years from the very start, first walking on the shooting range, she was able to shoot at the World Cup in Munich, new national record at that time, 376, I believe, or 7. And in that season, she was actually breaking 7 times national record. So it wasn't a coincidence that she shot one high score, to say, at that time. Of course, 376 or 7, I don't remember exactly, wasn't to get into the final or whatever, but it was some among 115, I believe, athletes competing at that competition. It was somewhere around 35th place or something like that. Still, it was very good foundation to go on. The entire idea behind that was when the club started working, and I was deeply involved in practical work, to say, and my assistant at that time, I said, well, now I'm ready with my experience and knowledge to start working with beginners. I think this is one of the points that I would like to make. And that was a part of the discussion last evening as well. Problem, generally worldwide problem, is that beginner shooters, young people, youth, are beginning to train with the coaches or instructors or whatever we should call them, who are definitely great enthusiasts, and probably they have certain level of knowledge through their own shooting career or through their own coach / instructor career in the club or region or local community. But I'm afraid that they're not really qualified to start working with beginners. At the academy, I hope Joe remember when I was outlining and saying, as a young coach when I started, and it doesn't matter if you're young or not young, it's absolutely legitimate dream to say, I want my shooters to be the best in the world. I'm very math-oriented person. My previous life, actually, before shooting and so on, by education, I'm a medical doctor, and my secondary education is electronic engineering. But I never worked in those fields. I worked 1 year in medical branch, to say. So loving math from my early days, when I say it's legitimate to say, I want my shooters to be the best in the world, then it should be an equal sign and say, then you've got to be the best coach in the world. I guess it makes some kind of sense. When I say best coach in the world, not by a standard evaluation, to say, and that standard evaluation is coming later in the late age, where we can refer to our CV, how many medals our athletes produced, and so on and so on. But when I say best coach in the world, that means that we've got to educate ourselves. And starting probably what I know as ever youngest national coach in the history of our sport, age 29, when I started with Danish team, one thing that I outlined for myself, and that was that I should spend, and I will spend, and I'm still spending, every day in average 1 hour of learning. So of course in the beginning it took some time to collect, but now after 30 something years, for sure, you collect knowledge. Back to the point, I think as a sport we are making a beginner mistake. We are putting non-qualified and non-educated people to start up and fire up that engine and start our young people or novice shooters or youth people. And expecting that through a whole range of, let's say, inappropriate methodologies or lack of knowledge and so on by the coaches or instructors, they should get fair chance and opportunity to develop into future champions. That's quite illusion. You know how it's difficult, and you know probably all of you, when you get a shooter who started somewhere else and built up some wrong habits, then it takes 10 times more time to correct one mistake than it was time that mistake was built. That's the first difficulty. The second problem in overall junior development, if we speak about Australia or any other country or region or whatever, it is to build up an equal opportunity and equal educational system. Very often I've heard through my career people talking about Russian shooting school. Not only on theoretical level, also on practical level. I can tell you, something like that doesn't exist. It's just an invention of the people believing that there is existing some kind of systematic education or school, and the people are working on the same premises. Maybe it was during the Soviet time something. I visited back in 1985 as a young student at Lomonosov University, a sports school where they had, I think, entire 7th floor dedicated to the shooting sport. And I believe that by the end of 80s, like 1988, they had like 5,000 graduated shooting coaches from the sport school, sport university. But times have changed. That's a long time ago. It's the same situation if we speak about Chinese shooting school. No, it doesn't exist. If you're just a bit experienced coach, and when you walk on the shooting line, I mean shooting range in any international competition, and observe just Chinese shooters, you will see a dozen of different styles and different techniques that they are applying and so on. So one thing we have to overcome those, to say, prejudice that we have. It's not to talk something negative about those countries. On the contrary, many countries found themselves in underdog situation, believing that they are not having all the tools to go for the top. But that's not true. You will find a range of very small countries that are making tremendous results on international stage. So not to run too far, one of the things that I strongly believe that is that we should give possibility to educate coaches on the local level, regional level, with the suitable knowledge. And one of those programs as a starter, not as a totally developed program, that was a D course that we ran through the academy very successfully. I think we closed up to almost 100 courses worldwide. That was a small course, small presentation with the basics. But again, I believe if any country would like seriously to give it a shot, someday, 5 years, 8 years from today on, to have champions or potential champions on the international stage, they'll have to go back into the base, not to deal exclusively with the existing national team. On the top of the game, where I have been, and Vladimir is there, and some other coaches and so on, we are not shooting. We are not teaching shooters to be better shooters and to be excellent shooters. I think through my entire career of 30 years, I'm not certain if I've changed something technically by 2 or 3 athletes in total. Our job on the top game is to produce excellent competitors, not excellent shooters. That's the name of the game.
You talk there, when you say excellent competitors that can handle the stress of the environment of competing at the top level and absorb it and perform in the big moments?
Mike, when you go on PET, on any discipline, and you walk the range and you see shooters, let's say on some huge ranges like Munich shooting range, where you can watch at the same time 100, let's say, air pistol shooters, you will see that at least 60 of them are hitting bloody 10 that they can win that competition. But the next day, when there is competition, You know, statistically speaking, and nothing has changed through past 30 years. We have about 12 to 1,500 athletes running through the World Cup series and the major continental championships and so on. Only 5% of the same people are taking medals.
It's about the mind
what
game.
Makes,
yeah,
what makes those
shoulders up?
What makes not only that? Sorry, I don't agree entirely with that. What makes those 5% different from the rest? Let's say 55%, because I believe strongly that 60% of the people on PET range can win competition by the quality, technical quality that they are delivering through PET. Day before competition. It is something that we have been trying very hard to teach people to compete. Competing is not just a mental state. Very often, I've been working 8 years with the Manchester Metropolitan University and Dr. Paul Holmes. He has PhD in sports psychology, and later on I switched to work with Professor Claudio Robatta from Pescara University. I've been working with the Finnish sports psychologist. Just give me a sec to recall his name. It'll come to me because that was the subject.
Yeah.
The point is, we agreed. Yuri Hanin, yeah. He's with the Russian origins, but he's the most quoted sports psychologist of nowadays, living one. What we agreed upon, them and myself, through various conversations and so on, it is that due to the lack of technical knowledge, methodological approach, methodology of teaching and learning, and so on, all those things that, let's say, common coaches are missing, they tend every single trouble situation to throw into garbage bag and call it mental problem. There are far less mental issues and psychological problems for the athletes than we think. Building a competitor is not exclusively mental state. It's also technical, tactical, strategical, process of learning, end game, and so on and so on and so on. Various methodologies that we can apply through the training process. Another very, very, common mistake that we are meeting. People are confusing two methodologies. One that it's called trial and error, and experiment. People think if they put into action, let's try this, and then we see what's the outcome, and let's try that, and then we see outcome. You will very often hear them saying, yeah, we did an experiment. Experiment is a scientific category that is detail, down to every detail described. Imagine that people are building a space shuttle, and then they say, okay, we'll make rocket like this, so let's fire it up and see what will happen, if it will fall or if it will survive. But experiment is built with the where we are, where we want to be, which methodologies we want to engage, which evaluation methodologies we would like to use, what are our expectations, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So we put that in theoretical line, yeah, and then we put that into practical line, and we see what are the differences, or what are the percentages of disagreement, to say, between those very precisely defined plans. So coming to that, planning and programming, every federation is working very hard on that. But honestly speaking, if I speak like coach, and I'm very, very honest with you, I don't know, and I never knew how to plan for my athlete program longer than perhaps 3 days. Everything what we write on the papers is actually bureaucracy, because we need money from Ministry of Sport or from the Olympic Committee and so on. Because in our sport, you know, our athletes don't have opponents. They're competing against themselves. So we are dealing with the humans on basic level. And if someone, yes, we can, and we need to have programs and plans. But imagine this situation. Just imagine. Now this is 1st of July or 2nd of July, sorry. And we say by 31st of December, we would like Mike to shoot 580 air pistol. Just as an example.
I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, I'm sure also the rest of the crew of the meeting. And then we say, okay, you will be working, Mike, with this and this and this areas. Yeah, is it physical? Is it technical? Is it triggering or what? Doesn't matter. Let's not go into details. And of course, we'll make some kind of evaluation. Let's say on the 1st of September, yeah, and then we'll make next evaluation on the 1st of November. And let's say right now you're shooting 550. By 1st of January or 31st of December, you need to reach 580. So let's put a simple, I mean, not realistic, but just simple example. By 1st of September, you should shoot 560. And by 1st of November, 570. And 1st of January, those 580. Yeah. And what's happening? By 1st of September, you are not shooting 560, you are shooting 568. And the coach goes on and says, you see, yeah? Great program, huh? Excellent program.
But what happens at the next milestone?
No, remember this. Joe is doing the same thing, yeah? Pursuing the same goal and has the same milestone. And instead of shooting 560, he's shooting 553. And then national coach comes and say, well, your program was not good. You see, it's not productive. Both programs are wrong, because you shot more than you were programmed to do. And he shot less than he was. So what we tend to do, it is when we surpass some kind of goal, we make a fake statement that our program is very good. As well, when we don't achieve the, let's say, lap time as we wanted. So that's an extremely delicate subject to talk about. But I'm sorry, I took this conversation.
No, that's okay. You've gone down an interesting path, because I guess shooting is unique, and probably golf is very similar. Golf is the same, where you're competing with other athletes, but really you're competing against yourself, as you said. You're the only one who can have an outcome on your result, is the person yourself. And that's, as you said, building a competitor, building someone who can take all the aspects and put them together and perform on the day and put the score down when it really counts. Because to do it in training is fantastic, but to turn up at a championship and look down the line and see other Olympic champions, world champions, and then go, oh my God, there's very important people here, I don't know if I'm good enough. But you've got to block that out and just do it, and just say, I'm here, I have my blinkers on, I know what I can do.
Yeah, but just to make one thing clear, those 5% that are winning medals, believe me, they have the same kind of butterflies.
Yeah.
That one who took place number 58. And they have even higher butterflies in their stomach when they are shooting finals or they're approaching last shots or very last shot where it's deciding about gold or silver or the worst possible scenario, you know, the worst place that you can take it's fourth place because it doesn't count for anything, and still you couldn't get closer to the medal. That's psychologically probably the most difficult place to get to for any athlete. But coming back to youth and junior development programs in sport, I would love to see places where people will start considering building up a system. First of all, education system. And of course, I know enthusiasts are not getting full monthly salary for their job that they're doing in the local clubs or regional clubs. But, you know, there is a nice saying, if it is like that, it doesn't mean that it has to be like that.
Can I take you back for a moment? You talked about the young athlete, and you had a 3-year plan, and you took them from a beginner state through to an international competitor. What did you see in that competitor, or what do you look for in a competitor that you can work with and develop and train up? And for that 3-year path, how intensive were their training? Were they on the range multiple times a week, doing gym sessions, doing other sort of work? I mean, because I know for Joe as a national development coach, trying to put together something that, and it's probably individual for each athlete, but something that they can work towards, and you know, you need to be doing this level of work. I mean, if you don't do the hard work, you don't get the results.
That's for sure. Maybe it will be the best to answer this question if I explain to you what we did when we spoke about those youth or young people that we set up as 3 years from start till some kind of respectable international level. First of all, everybody who came to train shooting started with an old air rifle. You know, those like Diana that are breaking the barrel and you put the pellet in. We had some, let's say, local regional factory that produces for, 100 years similar kind of air rifles. They're with the spring compressed, yeah? It's not compressed air, it's nothing. It's just spring. Probably you've seen those. Why we chose them? We chose them for 2 reasons. One, that they have open sights, like air pistol. Yeah? Rear sight, front sight. No ring, no diopter, nothing like that. Secondly, the trigger is so inconsistent and very heavy, probably about 2 kilos. And third is that, next step, those were the reasons why we chose those rifles. Training process started from sitting position with support. What we try to teach them in let's say that initial period, we try to teach them to focus on the front sight and to pull the trigger and hold it after they release the trigger, after the shot breaks. Basic things. Vladimir knows how often we struggle with the top elite pistol shooters who are jerking off trigger or not holding back and so on technical aspect. Furthermore, I'll just grab from here some paper. Often I say to the coaches at the academy, maybe Joe's classroom was doing that, please draw me what you see, your aiming picture. And what I'm getting, it's something like this. I will share with you. I'm getting something like this. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. And majority goes by something like this, with the small variations. Maybe they shade bull eye or something. Imagine a beginner who comes for the first time on the shooting range. And you as a coach, you tell him, this is your aiming picture. So please try to align sighting elements like this. This is a first huge mistake. You know why? Because that picture doesn't look at all like that in reality. If you don't believe me, just go to the shooting range and try to see what you see. It looks something more like this. I'm sure that the rear side is covering almost 3 paper targets or 3 targets on the wall. You will say, come on, this is just a graphic explanation. No, it's not graphic explanation. It's a wrong pedagogical approach, because when you tell to someone who comes for the first time that he's going to see something like this, or she, and they see something totally different, the confusion begins. And the very first problems begin. This is only a start problem.
Yeah, it kind of comes back to the beginning. What we were talking about is entry-level coaches who have good intentions, but probably don't have the skills to teach this entry-level early skill technique acquisition. And as you said, you get athletes further down the line who are having some success but have bad habits.
Right, but let me just finish this and then I'll return back and try to give maybe some kind of solution. It's not only good to raise the problem or be smart, you know, explaining something, but also some practical solutions. So everybody shoots from the sitting position with a support, whether cushions or fork or something. Yeah. So what we wanted, we wanted to eliminate any arc of movement on the gun. We wanted kids, beginners, to learn to have proper sighting picture and proper trigger pull on technical basis. And after a couple of trainings, we start teaching them to visualize the process. What we meet in real life very often as one great obstacle to our development. Let's say you have kids 12, 13 years old, developing technically and with results quite fast till age 15 or 16, but they are developing exclusively through progress of the technical skills. And then all of a sudden, at some point, they start locking. They can't progress. Of course, they can't progress because their technique is not advanced. It advances from 0 to some point. And then we start identifying mental issues. What I want to say is that in common world, technical skills are those that coaches are insisting on, and result is growing and coming to here, and then stagnating or falling down. This is a period of 3 or 4 years. Then all of a sudden, after that, they are realizing, we don't have psychology for that. Yeah, this is psychology. What we try to do, it is for a kid or young person, let's say age 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever, yeah, where coordination anyway is not perfect. It's much easier to train their brain to say than their hand So we reversed the process. Our shooters couldn't hit the bullseye for the first month, let's say. But mentally, they were on much higher level because we insisted on process of imagery, on process of visualization, process of building and repeating steps for each shot on correct way and so on. We trained their mind. Very soon, when their technical skills, we reversed the process, so their mental part was here. Growing up technical skills and equaling, and then they are growing together further. That was one step and one tool of developing a good competitor.
So let's go then to some of the questions. We're talking about coaching, developing new coaches, but if we go to probably the elite level of the sport, excluding yourself, who's the greatest coach you've ever seen and why?
This is kind of a tricky question. Who is the greatest coach? I really don't know who is the greatest coach. I think I've learned through my career from many coaches, and I respected many of my colleagues, and it was evident that they have been making successes. What was difference between me and many others? Let's say on the top level. Obviously, I've changed like 6 or 7 national teams, and probably I can say with each I've made a mark. But many of the good colleagues, if they were lucky, they changed one country, and most of them stayed at their own country. So then it's very difficult to figure out what was their impact actually on those results. So I can't specifically give you the name. There is a range of very good coaches around the globe, I would say. But who is the greatest, really?
Yeah. Would you prescribe that well, some coaches are good up to a certain level, they can get an athlete to a certain point, and then they probably need to come to another coach to go to another level. So maybe as athletes need to know their strengths and weaknesses, maybe coaches to a degree need to know what level they're at their point in their career. And as you said, you're always learning, always dedicating time to learning, but some coaches can take an athlete so far and they have to be honest enough to say maybe you need to go to the next level with another coach.
It always has been a tricky point, because you have very often situation that a personal coach, local coach, club coach brings shooter to the certain level, and when it is time, let's say the athlete is surpassing capacity of the local coach, going to the next level, there is very often trouble and confrontation to say on the personal level, from personal coach through athlete to the, let's say, national coach or superior coach by default. Smart thing would be to involve all. As I said before, things that I'm talking might sound very theoretical and difficult to apply, but they are not. I worked 10 years as a national coach in Denmark. At that time, when I started working with them, Denmark pistol shooting, I mean, when I say Denmark, I refer to pistol shooting, was like 30 years behind Europe. They were nowhere on the map. Nowhere. If I will tell you that I invented girl number 3, junior girl, then it's clear picture. They had one and appeared second, and we invented third goal. I took the national team by 1990, I believe. 1994, they became world champions with the world record. And it wasn't coincidence. It was a carefully built up process. And there was no girl number 4 to substitute girl number 3 if she was not good. But what was introduced back then at that time, of course, Denmark is a small country. I mean, by geographical means. I was rolling all the time. Twice a week I was in Copenhagen, twice a week I was in Aarhus, second largest city in Denmark. And then we had every second weekend, we had Friday, Saturday, Sunday, small training gatherings. And that system actually gave very good results. I mean, especially Danish girls were dominating Europe for a range of years, I think 6-7 years. And one of the great shooters at that time, Susanne Meyerhoff, I mean, she was a kid when I met her, she was 17. I think she became 4 times European champion or whatever, and girls were regularly on the podium for 5, 6, 7 years. But the idea and the system that was introduced, that was due to the lack of local coaches or qualified local coaches. I was the running rabbit 10 years.
And so you're working obviously with a lot of local coaches in that environment, trying to make sure that the message that you were trying to deliver to all the athletes was going down to the coaches, so that can be done at a local level? No? You're just working with the athletes? No.
I was working directly with athletes. Of course, okay. I was talking to the coaches, but the training units were directly done by me.
Let's go to another question here. Coaches sometimes are known as great innovators, like deep thinkers of the sport and ways to improve things. If you're looking at ISSF matches at the moment, is there anything you'd like to see done differently, or some innovation you'd like to bring into a match? Something changing, or you think it's pretty good the way it is?
Honestly, maybe it's disappointing, but after Tang won World Championships, I decided to retire, and I didn't follow any matches ever since. Now it will be 2 years, and I'm not planning to come back at all. And honestly, I'm not sure that I know what is current status of the final matches in details. I have some kind of.
What do you make of
another thing? Sorry if I interrupt. Another thing which I was trying to push forward and lobby for and so on. It was in the time when they were deciding to get rid of the free pistol from the Olympic program. I was trying to push as hard as possible that senior men, should shoot and compete sport pistol. Of course, probably I was not the only one, but logics are saying next. You have equal disciplines, let's say in trap and skeet. You have equal disciplines in rifle. I mean, for men and women. Shooting same disciplines, same number of shots. Only pistol keeps still being a black cat.
Yeah, so you've got a 25-meter women's event, a 25-meter men's event. You're saying
you don't have 25 meters. Those are two completely different disciplines. Yeah. Nothing to have with each other but the shooting range of 25 meters.
Yeah.
And I think I'm sorry to say that some political lobbies decided to shoot rapid fire. 3 countries in the world are doing serious approach to rapid fire pistol men.
Yeah.
Germany, Russia, and China. That's it. So what are we making out of that? It's a joke. I'm sorry. You know, I know that the water polo is very popular in Australia.
That is my other sport, water polo.
Yeah, but you know, when we have European championships in water polo, among 5 best teams are 4 from former ex-Yugoslavia.
Yes, yeah.
There are not
Croatia,
more than 20
Serbia,
countries.
Montenegro, yeah, fantastic.
Serbia, yeah, and so on. There are not more than 20 countries in the world that are doing water polo. And I'm saying 3 countries are doing serious work on rapid-fire pistol men. And how many? And we have junior category sport pistol. Yeah, our juniors are shooting continental championships and world championships sport pistol like women are doing. You know, till age 21, and then somebody's cutting off their arm. Yeah, chop off, and you are not shooting anymore from now on. So what we are doing, we are wasting resources. Instead of having 5 shooters on the shooting range, we are having 1 shooter on the shooting range.
Yeah.
Right. We are wasting resources and neglecting importance in numbers and in money of CISM games where people are shooting centerfire pistol, which is just a bigger caliber. Yeah. So we are not cooperating with our let's say military ministries and putting ourselves, you know, connecting on their bloodstream or their money and their resources as well. So I would like to see
for maybe less matches and men and women shooting the sport pistol. Would you say women shoot rapid fire or just drop rapid fire?
No, I would say men, rapid fire. Thank you, goodbye. As they said, thank you, goodbye to free pistol. If they were able to put asleep the first and the oldest Olympic discipline of the modern Olympic Games,
yeah,
why they shouldn't put asleep rapid fire pistol, for Pete's sake, and give equality to the genders, like they gave equality to skit, trap, rifle. Yeah, why they don't give equality to pistol?
You're describing
That's
challenges
what I would
which exist across a lot of other sports.
Toto,
Same sort of challenges.
Toto, what did you think of the? I saw a while back that in Europe and some of the championships they had pairs in 50-meter pistol, and I thought, hallelujah, this is good, equal.
Yeah, but okay, that was a test event, so and so on. I mean, it's nothing new. In some countries in Europe, you have even in Denmark, where I was working. Let me share with you funny story. They let the women shoot free pistol. Yeah? And the champion of Denmark for that 1992 was Karen Hansen. And then executive board quickly dismissed free pistol open class, you know, because the woman beat them. And then it came a big riot on the meetings and so on. They put next year or 2 years later again ladies to shoot. And imagine what? Again, lady was number 1 on free pistol and lady was number 3 on free pistol in open class. Okay, we know why they took free pistol off, and maybe that was the time to do it. Personally, I disagree, but maybe if you say, okay, this is too boring, it's no action, and so on and so on and so on. If you take those arguments, very fine. But then, if we have half static, half dynamic discipline like sport pistol ladies, and we train our juniors till age 21, the same discipline, why shouldn't we make it equal for all? We have 15 Olympic disciplines. Yeah, 12 of them are individual and 3 are mixed teams. If on all other disciplines, men and women are fighting in the same field with the same level of difficulty and with same weapons, Why shouldn't they do it on pistol side as well? So instead of talking about innovating, to say, format of the finals or whatever, or present format of the competition, I would first like to see equality in choosing disciplines on pistol.
Yeah, there's certainly pressure from the IOC and from international media to have what they call an exciting sport all the time. And I know in pistol there's more music, there's more sport presentation around, and that's about engaging the spectators more than it is about helping the athletes. But what do you make around that of introducing music and more announcing and more noise and hullabaloo within the environment to capture the spectators?
Do you know how it came years back that rapid fire pistol was changed final from 10 shots to 20 shots?
No, I don't. No.
I give you an inside story. It was running final at the Olympics, and Jacques Rogge was president of the Olympic Committee. So he was visiting rapid fire final. And he was sitting with Olegario Vasquez Rania and with Franz Schreiber at that time, unofficially Secretary General. So they came, boom, 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 one series, boom, 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 done. Hey! And Jacques Rogge turned to Olegario and said, "That's it." Next day, ISF headquarters office was in fire, and then they introduced 20 shots and so on. I mean, we didn't have for years serious debate about how to progress with our sport. It was just a handful of people who thought their ideas were good, Years back, I was fighting for the coaches union, and it was complete resistance from ISF. And most of you don't know this, how it came, how we have today coaches advisory committee. It's nonsense, because it's committee without anything to say. That's why it's called advisory committee. So European Championships in Winter Tour, ages ago, I gathered colleagues. First, it was in I believe in Fort Benning once, and I don't remember where it was. Second time, maybe Miro Šipek will remember, because he was on that meeting. We were so unhappy with changes. So it was spontaneous gathering of the coaches, and we started working on some details, how to make some kind of union or syndicate or organization of the professional coaches and so on. But it was coming to nothing, because when you go back home and people are suppressing and so on. But I kept on. So in Winter Tour that year, the European Championships, we got support from Uni Nicolaisen, back then president of European Shooting Confederation. And I was elected among colleagues as the first president of that union. And together with John Leighton Dyson from GB, I said, okay, this is only for 1 year. We should make constitution, we should make regulations and so on, and let's come back after 1 year and discuss about it. Yeah. So it comes 2010, I believe it was World Championships in Munich, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. And at that moment, I was sitting back at home, and Wolfgang Schreiber calls me quite a bit in panic and say, "Well, where are you?" "I'm at home in my swimming pool." "But tomorrow we have this meeting, we should have about coaches and so on." A few months before that, Franz was, at some dinner kind of almost threatening me not to go with too loud. And I said to him, "Franz, you can like it or not, we exist. If you want to close your eyes, you can close them, but we will not disappear. And then they came with a smart solution to make coaches advisory committee. So friend Schreiber calls me, Wolfgang, and said, where are you? You know, I'm at home. At that very moment, I didn't have contract. That was a few months in between two contracts. One of the things that I asked in that statute was that in that organization can be only active coaches. Because I didn't want to see anybody, you know, old people who are not really involved in sport like myself today, to sit on some position. I think that's illusion. That's nonsense.
Well, coaching is such an important part.
They selected Kevin Kilty on my recommendation. Yeah, and I think that Kevin did quite a good job with that committee.
Yeah, I mean, coaches have such an important voice in a sport that to have a collective that your opinions are heard and your ideas are listened to is really, really important. Let's change tack just a little bit here.
Sorry, just one sentence. How wrong things are. If you want to be elected member of any committee in ISSF, you have to produce your judge's license ID.
Yeah, it's as I said, this is challenges that go across many, many sports, and as I said, I have experience in water polo. Yeah, nothing's ever perfect, but again, if you're an international referee, you get more of a voice than a coach does, or ex-players and so forth. So it probably happens across a lot of different sports. But if you're looking at people you've coached across the years and athletes that want to transition into becoming a coach, what sort of advice would you give a former athlete, whether they're a mid-level or a elite level athlete, that they want to transition to become a coach? What should they do, or what would you advise them?
Educate themselves, because someone that has been a great athlete means nothing. I give you a dozen of names of the great champions who didn't make any significant mark on the coaching field. Those of you who remember, Ralph the King Schumacher, rapid fire king, yeah?
Yep.
Coach?
He's a 7-time Olympian with, what's he got there? About 5 or 6, 3 gold, 2 silvers thereabouts, Olympic wise?
I don't remember really. Ralph is a good friend.
Yeah, I've got some stats on some of the top medalists off the IOC website. So yeah, he's the number one in rapid fire.
Yeah. Any coaching impact? No. Jasna Šekar is 5 times Olympic champion, 61 World Cup medals. Unfortunately, yesterday was buried, and I was there. European champion Bobana Veličković. She passed away during delivery of the son. Yeah.
Oh, terrible.
Baby boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jasna was her coach after last Olympics.
Yeah, it's
Dorisuren Mongbaya, yeah, Mongolian German top lady pistol shooter. She's coaching some few clubs in India somewhere, and so on and so on and so on. We can go names and names and names and names and names. There are very, 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 very few, let's say in the past 30 years, top shooters who made any difference in coaching or succeeded to produce some kind of successes and medals. One of them is Krzysztof Kucharczuk, Polish rapid fire shooter who ran quite nicely for 10 years Swiss national team.
Yeah, it's the challenge. It's one of the skills in the art form of coaching is to be able to take the technical knowledge and explain it to somebody in a form that they can understand, and they can follow that and do it and impart that knowledge to people. It's a very much a skill, and it's one of those questions I always wonder about: what makes a great coach? What is it about a personality or a particular part of someone's makeup that makes them a great coach?
I have to switch.
Yeah. Run out of batteries. You can hear us?
Am I back?
Yes, you're back. Yes.
Because I ran out of the battery with.
Yes. I figured that. Yeah. So my question is, what makes a great coach? What is it because you don't need to be a top class athlete. You can be somebody who was never that successful as a competitor, but you can be a great coach. And as you said, you can be a great competitor and sometimes not a great coach.
Yeah, but let me put this way. I think Joe will remember something that I tried to explain at the academy. One that possesses all the technical knowledge about certain shooting discipline is nothing else but a walking USB two-legged memory stick. Because technical knowledge about certain discipline, that's something that it's considered coach knows. But then all other aspects of coaching are coming into the play. Communication skills, methodology of teaching, methodology of learning, mental management, strategical planning, and. Those things are not, athletes as athletes don't deal with those things during their career. And that what works for them, it works for them. That's it. So it would be a total illusion to say a very good friend of mine, Jasna Šekarić, I was in 2 periods her personal coach. I brought her from that before London Olympics when she was placed 68, 69 or whatever. After so many decades of shooting and competing and making results, when we start working and after initial conversation of 4 or 5 hours, she said to me, you know what? Now I understand that I don't know what I'm doing. If the great athletes, let's say successful athletes, when they hit the trouble, if they have that necessary knowledge that coaches should have, they should never get into trouble, right?
Yeah.
They would be able to teach themselves how to overcome the obstacles. But that would be the same, my hobby is woodworking. But can I call myself carpenter? I don't think so. You need to have to possess certain number of skills and knowledge to do something. And there is no difference about coaching. Very often we confuse that coaches are some kind of, superior creatures. I'm no different than any plumber or electrician. Believe me. You just go, you take education, you enrich your knowledge, and you go and you work very hard. Champions, excellent coaches, excellent competitors and so on, successful ones. Honestly, I can't say that their medal should recommend them for coaching position. I mean, just the very last is this. I'm not very much involved in that, but probably you've heard about this guy, Jose Mourinho,
yes.
A football coach. He was never even close to the top player.
He's got the ability to give that knowledge to the players and allow the players, obviously, to be their best.
When you watch that very popular sport, worldwide popular sport, and when you remember all the great football players that we've seen through past 30 years, probably a handful of them made a successful coaching career.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily, the level you compete at doesn't guarantee anything when it comes to coaching. But when you talk about sporting and funding, I know in Australia here, it's funding for sport is very much driven by medal chance, and they'll fund a particular team or an athlete because they're a medal chance, and they're looking at coaches' results based on medals, and it doesn't really translate. It's an unfair guide sometimes that you're judged on the final result, where really the progress and the growth from where you started to where you got to is probably something that's harder to judge, but it's probably more important.
Right. We always come back to the point of money, which we shouldn't neglect as important factor in building a success. And what we tend to do in our sport very often, doesn't matter where across the globe I've been, probably you'll find yourself in that position too, to say we don't have enough funding. And then comes that raise two questions. One is how did you make your plans? One of the most common mistakes is that, let's say, shooting federations, they make their internal plans and programs, and they're very, very detailed, and they're very juicy, and they're very promising, and so on. But before they made them, they never involved those who are giving money in that process. They just come with a ready paper and say, well, this is our program, whether it's Ministry of Sport or whatever it's called, or National Olympic Committee or whatever, some governing body, and saying, this is our program. And they look at that, they look at their numbers and they say, well, okay, we'll consider it. And then you get like 60% of what you have been asking, or 50 or 40. And then you come back home and you say, hey, dear friends, no chance, we don't have money, we can't do it. First mistake in building a program that depends on the budget is that there is no letter of intent, and all stakeholders have to be involved in that process. It's a principle from business. If I want Ministry of Sport to deliver money, or enough money for my activities as a national coach, would be the most natural thing that during the preparatory process, somebody from the Ministry of Sport or governing body that delivers money should be in my working team. Because first, when they become part of the process, then you might have chance to get money. To say, this is one set of the issues. Second one, I'll give you an example of my work in Finland. I was brought in Finland not to make medals. They were totally aware that they've hit the very lowest point in their development system, and they wanted me to help them develop that. And that was a very interesting project. So I remember first time I came there, of course, first time I came and met with the coaches from all various regions, which are 10 regions there. And we sit down and we talk and so on. And I ask, okay, how many times did you meet with the former national coach? Former national coach was there like almost 8 years. How many times did you meet with him and discuss various things and problems and so on? 0 times. My first coming, I was there with 22 or 23, let's say, coaches. And 2 things that came across that meeting. One was, we don't have enough young people, and we don't have money. Okay, we were discussing, I tried to make this very short. We were discussing for hours, and on the end I put them into small working groups. They to identify neighboring regions, let's say 2 neighboring regions, to identify how many young shooters they had. On the end of the meeting, we came to the point that they had like 120 kids. Where the 2 hours prior to that, they had 0. And the second thing is, that year, they got from the Finnish Shooting Federation budget of 5,000 euros. I mean, 5,000 euros is a joke.
Yeah, it's not much.
For the youth development. But even more funny thing was, out of those 5,000 euros, they've spent only 2,100. So they even didn't use 5,000. And we were sitting there and I outlined to them how to make money on the local level. I mean, Finland is a country number 1 in the world by how you call it?
Living standards?
Economic stability.
Yeah.
Economic stability. It's quite a rich country. I said, okay, can you maybe in your area, in your town, in your village, whatever, because they are mostly villages, can you get a local bakery store or local petrol station to sponsor you with 200 euros per year, your project? Yeah, that's not difficult. Okay, so everybody got assignment to get 10 200 euro sponsors in their region. That meant there are 10 regions, so that was 20,000 euros. And then I moved ahead with a green light from the sport director and said, very fine. Every penny that you raise above 2,000 euros in sponsorships for the youth development, it will be split half between you and federation. So we opened special accounts for those coaches, and some of them made 4,000 euros a year, which they've spent on their sporting activities. Yeah, but that gave to that region 6,000 euros of sponsorships. We ended up with 75,000 euros next year in sponsorships for the youth development, and additional around 40,000 for the coaches. So from 5,000 euros, we moved to 100,000 euros.
Well, that probably brings me to the last question I'm going to ask before we maybe go to the panel. Everyone on here, I'm sure they've got lots of questions. I'm watching people that have been taking notes, which is fantastic. So if you're going to set up a sub-elite national development program and you had no limitations in resources, what does it look like? What do you want to start with? What do you want to do? If you could just design a program, your perfect program to develop athletes, what does it look like?
This is a very interesting question, because through all the years that I've been working, I introduced way back during my Danish time, elite, sub-elite, and elite hopes and talent levels. What was the difference? Difference was in pedagogical approach. What we tend to do, it is to make a junior male air pistol team, a junior female sport pistol team, and dedicate coaches for that or programs for that and so on. I went other way around and I said, doesn't matter for me if there is a 35 years old air pistol man and a 16 years old sport pistol girl shooting with a, let's say, same level, mathematically calculated.
Yeah.
They were elite group, and they were sponsored and they were organized and their activities were planned in accordance with their quality. So you mentioned, if I understood you correctly, what I would do if I got sub-elite.
You want to start a program. You've got no limit on resources. You're going to start a sub-elite program. What do you do?
Where's elite program? Sorry, when you say sub-elite.
Well, this is the next level feeding into the elite program. Let's say we've got an elite program.
No. My question was, do you have established elite program? So you are asking me to establish sub-elite.
Yes, we want to go to the next level. We want to get the next generation going through.
Everything has to go through what we call talent ID program. That has to be established on the club level. I know that you live in a big country, but not very populated.
We're very spread out. Very spread out.
Yeah. Very spread out. And what's the number of people living in Australia? 15 million?
About 25 million, thereabouts. Roughly.
25, okay, so my data is a little bit too old.
Yeah. like my bio with you is a little bit old.
Yeah, or it doesn't matter. Still, it's a small number of inhabitants for such a huge territory that you are covering. And I understand that there are difficulties in reaching everybody everywhere. So first thing which I would do if I had unlimited resources and so on, I would spread geographically in some, let's say, strategical way country. And then would start making programs for each one of them and begin to coordinate them. So how it looks like, it was done on much smaller geographical territory, to say, and it was very good program, I must say, because it saves a lot of money, tons of money, and tons of resources, and so on. If you divide, let's say, south, north, or east, west, doesn't matter. Whatever is more convenient. I'm not expert. I'm sorry about.
No, that's
Australian,
right. Yeah. You're looking at regional centers.
Cut it.
Yeah.
Like a pie, 4-6 pieces, doesn't matter, and start building up each region with the same system, which is very important. Why? Because when I want to deliver from let's say Joe's pool shooters to Vladimir, I want that their transition will be without feeling any difficulties, which means they have to work with the same methodologies, with the same drills, with the same techniques, and so on. That's one point that it's very important. In order to achieve that, to have successful sub-elite and elite program, people have to undergo common education program, and they have to accept it. Problem is, when you conduct whatever education program back home, there will be always some smart people and say, that's not right, my system is better. Sounds familiar?
You need everyone to buy in. You need the bulk of the community to buy into the system and go with the system.
If you are not all, if this screen represents pistol shooting wise heads of Australia that I'm seeing right now, first and foremost important thing is that you go all together. Yeah. Because if you're pulling different directions with the way of training, with the understanding of the shooting, with the methods and techniques that you want to apply and so on, you're not doing any good.
Yeah, and the challenge there is getting some people maybe to swallow their ego a little bit and go with what the design system is.
It's as well in every family. I know somebody has to swallow ego, not just in federation. But the point, first and most important, is education. Because if people don't get info and educate themselves with the data that you have, and they accept and say, okay, this is a starting point. Okay, maybe I'm right this time, maybe somebody else will be right next time, and so on. But as long as we row in the same boat, we might have chance to succeed.
So we've almost gone a full circle from where we started the conversation back to coaches of juniors, and that's probably the start of the program if you're going to go to sub-elite, is to have a pool of good junior coaches teaching the same thing, the same technique, the same process. And then you've got a chance of building that base and it coming up, and obviously it goes up into the pyramid to the pointy end at the top, but you've got to have that base operating in unison to build everyone up.
That's right. One thing, as long as you want to keep as you want to keep Vladimir as a head coach, he's the captain.
Yeah.
The rest of the crew has to follow him. I speak about coaches. If you're not happy with him, change him, and then you'll get another one. But it doesn't matter which name or which person is there. The rest of the crew will have to follow that person who is there, sitting in that chair.
Fantastic. Toto, it's been wonderful talking to you and great insights onto your career as a coach and your insights into the sport. But I want to throw it open now to everybody here. If someone's got a question, I mean, as I said, I've seen a lot of people taking notes and writing things down, and I hope you've all absorbed a lot of what Toto's had to say. But please, let's hit him up with some more questions.
Mike, why don't you go around your screen and ask?
Okay, starting from my screen, I'll go from
Vladimir and myself out of it for the time being.
I'll go from the bottom to the top. So at the bottom, in reverse, I've got Graham Harvey. Graham, can you hear me? Have you got any questions? You're going to have to unmute everyone, Joe, I think. Or he'll have to unmute himself. I can't do it from here. No response from Graham. What about Paul Steen there? Paul? Yep, Paul's there.
You're right now. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very interested in what you were saying about the methodology of coaching. What sort of percentage do you put on training in respect to, let's say, mental, physical, and dry training? And when I say dry training, I don't mean shooting a shot, compared to actually loading your firearm and training with a loaded firearm. So what sort of emphasis do you put on that sort of training?
I'm very happy that you've put forward that question, Paul, because one of my favorite tools to say, and most hated by athletes, it's dry fire.
Yeah.
I'll give you some numbers. While working in France, I'll take in particular Walter Lapierre, who has been one of the top shooters during my time. I mean, my production. This is egocentric what I'm saying, but it is. Walter Lapierre was a European champion, junior champion, yeah? And he couldn't enter national team for 9 years until I came. Then he became, I believe at some point he was shooter number 1 on the world ranking list. So I'll give you data, not only Walt, but entire team, national team. He was firing like 10,000 pellets per season, 9,700 or whatever. But he was firing around 12,000 dry fire shots on air pistol. Dry fire methodology is a very complex methodology. It's not just somebody standing in front of the white surface and just, I don't know, lifting something and so on. Because it's completely outlined. With dry fire methodology, you can train absolutely everything and still build positive self-image. which is very important, perspective how athlete see himself. Basically, during dry fire, athlete can shoot every time a 10. So from a specific physical condition, developing specific physical condition, developing balance in a position, a technique of lifting, which is very neglected among the pistol shooters, technique of lifting, if we speak air pistol, sighting technique, triggering technique, gripping technique, breathing technique, follow-through technique. Everything is composed in dry fire. Plus, of course, what we all know, it's possible to be done any place, anytime. Cost is next to zero. So yes, definitely my kind of.
Very good. Thank you.
Very good. David Chapman, as I'm going around my screen here, it's going to be different what everyone else sees. But David, have you got a question?
Yeah, I probably have lots of questions. Well, I guess just following up on that dry fire and live fire over my time as a competitor, I found dry fire, immensely beneficial, but my specialty being rapid fire, I found I lacked the shot recognition and follow through and technique in recovery and so forth in doing too much dry fire compared to live fire. I was wondering, Toto, what sort of comments you have there, percentages of if you've got the resources to draw on a comment there.
Again, I'm sorry that you will find yourself in the story that I said about rapid fire, but rapid fire is extremely demanding discipline. And of course, I understand what you're saying. You need live fire in order to recognize recoil, movement, and so on. Plus, rapid fire has that specificum that you have to sharpen your reaction time and your sense of timing, and it's rather difficult to do it exclusively through dry fire. But of course, in rapid fire, what we prefer to do more, instead of shooting 5 shots, in majority of the cases, if you take a mathematical approach to a rapid fire, and we say that, let's say nowadays, late 80s, 588 or something like that is quite okay result. You've got like minus 12 points. If you divide them on 2 half matches, it's 6 points per half match. Where can you afford to lose them? Those 6 points. 1 on 8 seconds, 1 on 6 seconds, and 4 on 4 seconds. But where you can't lose them, that's first and second shot. So on rapid fire, it's a little bit different approach, but still a lot to do with the dry firing, because the most decisive shot in rapid fire is the first shot and the first rotation. That's first, second target. 3, 4, 5, that's piece of cake, believe me. Once you resolve the first and the second shot, and then there comes a lot of dry fire.
Yes, I was just wondering, it was an observation and a critique and probably an awakening in some respects that when I was over at the Rio Games, I was competing as an athlete and watching the warm-up of everybody else, more so being better than myself, that watching Cubans and Russians and Chinese and different techniques, that some would do the strong shoulders and move the whole body, and some were
lose
strong body but just moving the arm only. And yet they were still always mostly pretty much shooting like 50s in 4-second runs. And
Yeah.
I got to a point where I thought, well, who cares how you shoot a 10? If you can consistently do it and repeat the same process, who cares? Just if you can shoot 50s, 50s and 50s, well, doesn't matter.
I always said, if you can shoot like this 50, just do it.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. Of course, we'll have to. We didn't invent shooting. We just inherited. But the good thing that we inherited is also experience and knowledge from the generations and generations before us. You'll always find an unorthodox style that gives results. But that's just that exclusions are proving the rule, yeah, or exemptions are proving the rule. We can't just go by one shooter that does, let's say, out of the frame technique or way of doing it. That's the secret. There are no secrets.
Yeah.
Thanks, David. Toto,
right.
Carry on. I better stop asking questions.
No, you're right. No, Toto, just David, he represented Australia at the Sydney, London, and Rio Olympics. So he's been at the pointy end of the sport for a fair while. So it's nice to have him on board here and asking questions and obviously continuing to learn as you go. John Scott's the next on my screen. John, have you got a question?
Mike.
You've got to unmute him. Joe, you're going to have to unmute John. 1 second.
No.
Yeah, there we go. John, you're on.
I'm on. Oh, good. Toto, I just have a simple question. How do you think that electronic triggers have they benefited the sport or caused more problems with the sport with lazy trigger pull?
Please don't take me wrong. It's the same like your background.
You're disappearing into your background.
An idea of electronic trigger, of course, has been there for a long time. But the problem with electronic triggers, besides, let's say, Morini free pistol, which was very steady, and air pistol from Morini. All other electronic triggers have shown quiet inconsistency and lack of reliability, to say.
I've found that some shooters become very lazy on the trigger because they don't, bring the trigger right back. They sort of, rely on the click. They hear the click and that's their shot, it's finished. But they don't rely on the trigger coming all the way back, then guiding it all the way forward again. That's what I've noticed.
People don't understand one thing. It's not, electronic trigger is almost the same like mechanic trigger. Still, you've got to engage the pressure on the trigger. Yeah? Yes. Simply, there are no sliding parts that release the hammer. There is a micro switch that does it. But for the athletes, with electronic trigger, they might skip something that's happening when the trigger mechanism is worn out. Mechanical trigger. Yeah. Those blocks that are sliding across each other. Yeah? But it can't give them more advantage, to say, in terms of points.
I don't say advantage. I'm finding it makes them a bit lazy in their trigger squeeze more than anything. With the mechanical, they have to rely on the trigger squeeze all the way back. With electronic, they can stop on that click and don't squeeze the trigger all the way back.
That's one of the downsides.
Yeah. So you've noticed it. It's noticeable.
Yeah, sure. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Fantastic, John. Ray is the next on my screen here. So Ray, have you got any questions that you want to ask Toto?
No, not particularly. I think it's been a great program. I've taken on board what Todo's been saying, and he's definitely got a lot of good ideas. There's no two ways about that. And I'd just like to thank on behalf of Pistol Australia for him making himself available to do this, along with Joe and Vladimir, who helped to organise it all. So thank the whole three of you for a great show, and let's hear what the rest of the questions are. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, Ray. Robert. You'll have to unmute him, Joe, I think, or Robert. Oh, Robert's got right. He's good.
First of all, look, just adding to Ray's comment, Toto, I really, really appreciate you taking the time and the effort to speak to us. There was fantastic information. I've got 3 pages of notes here. But really, the question really goes to Joe and to Vladimir, is that the information that you really came across is to get unity within our group, within our country, as far as our coaching, and to focus on our young and junior coaches, junior shooters, which we've always sort of been trying to do. So the question really is, going back to Joe and Vladimir, is how can we start to build the unity within our coaching infrastructure here in Australia, and especially with what Toto's saying with this top-down information in relation to making sure that the coaches at the local level can actually start providing that same information so that there's less transition as those juniors or those shooters move from local to state to the national elite, lower elite and higher elite groups.
I'll go first, I suppose. After I came back from Toto's wonderful educational session at Montenegro, we embarked, Pistol Australia and myself embarked on a coach's education program, a symposiums, and I tried to get around to all the states and organise coaches that would like to hear this information that I was bubbling to share with everybody. So that program, I think David Chapman's been availed to. We had a symposium in South Australia. We had some in Tasmania, the National Junior, but that program is there and available for the states to take on board. All the coaching directors of Australia know of its existence. It's just a matter of organisation and getting it to happen. Vlad, I don't know what you would like to share.
It needs to be unmuted. Unfortunately.
Okay, could I speak now? Could you hear?
Yeah. Yes.
During my being here last time in Australia, from first point we discussed with our president, Ray Andrews, this particular way to educate coaches and stay on board with all state organized coaching education. And we have had an approach to introduce coaches in states, and we have had a lot of suggestions. Unfortunately, our state haven't supported us to introduce permanent coaches in few states, because without daily training environment where coaches working on a line consistently, what you have heard from Todo, you wouldn't get anything. And we are having here such 2 conditions that stopping us full time. It is daily training environment where we have excellent people, excellent coaches in Australia, but they're not working as a coaches. They're working as a people who are volunteers. There's time during weekend, sometimes during weeks, but they're not working consistently. And second part, it is methodology of training. As you have heard, it is very important issue. Coach need to know what to do with this athlete. When he observes this athlete, he making all-time individual approach to work with athlete, because his mental capacity, his capacity of his nervous system, his kinesthetic ability, you are watching him and you know whom he will be in 1 year time, 3 years time, and most important part, to make good shooters, again, to have good competitor. And we are starting from mental training and behavior pattern for elite top athletes from the beginning. And because of technical stuff, physical stuff coming up slowly, we are organizing our champions by making them to put effort, mental effort, and to be fighter and be a winner in their mind straight away. We are lacking this part. And what I'm saying is our daily training environment, methodology of training that we need to apply. And Ray will tell you guys that we have done so many approaches to combine all effort. You have heard our webinar after national championship, where I said we need to be together, combine effort, and go forward. It is our issue, and we need to resolve. And Toto will say, without that two parts, we wouldn't move anywhere. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Vlad. Thank you, Joe. David Banks. You've got to be unmuted again. Yeah, here we go. Hang on. You'll be on in a sec. There you go. You're up.
Hi, Toto. Thank
Hello.
you. Thank you for your time. I guess my one question would be, I do work with junior shooters 90% of the time. What would be your best advice for me to give to them?
Probably what I said before. Try to teach them both things, technical skills and mental skills at the same time.
Yeah.
Don't let them fire one single shot before they do mental rehearsal of that shot. If you ask me on technical aspects, that's what I understood.
Yes.
That's the key point, because when it comes to the match at the Olympics, final at the Olympics, if I may take that as a crown point, yeah, and let's call it most difficult. What I demanded from my athletes who have been there, it is basically, you have like a loop. Day one, when shooter walks through the door, you gave him instruction how to become Olympic champion. You told him,
yep,
align sights in accordance to the target and gently squeeze the trigger. And then goes the adventure, next 10 or 15 years, the bumpy road. And then when they return back to the basic info, basic instruction, then they are shooting Olympic final successfully. Because that's all what matters. That's what they are doing when they are shooting for the Olympic gold. They are trying to focus on the very basic. In order they to be prepared to take this journey, you really have to implant from day one with every single shot in their routine that no shot can be fired before it is prepared.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered really your question, but that's what I understood.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
That's some fantastic bit of advice there. That's I know David's going to take that with him. Lucky. Joe's just going to, here we go. Lucky is on.
Hello, Toto.
Hello.
Very, very interesting. Everything you said today is very interesting and very to the point. What I picked up on things is, and the question I got for you, is that every country seems to go that way where the best coaches take over the junior programs. How do you pick those coaches? Is there a criteria that actually applies to this selection? Or is it by the people they produced as athletes? You know, what is it that makes a country say to the coach, well, you're going to coach from now on our junior teams? What is it a personal thing? Because from what I can gather, you took it upon yourself to do this job, like take over the junior program. But is there a criteria? Is there a way of selecting coaches to do this job and take on the programs that, you know, would develop junior shooters?
Yeah, that's very difficult question. You know, if I were there, you know, I would put Vladimir to be a junior coach because he would fit the criteria. The point is, it's very, very difficult to persuade people, well, with, let's say, good knowledge and great experience, to degrade themselves and to start working with the young people.
It's like a demotion, isn't it? Really?
But many people would take that as demotion.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's right.
No,
you know, I had fantastic experience in Russia, where one of the probably among the best female shooters in the world, at least in last 30 or 40 years, Svetlana Smirnova. She was my assistant coach with the ladies team. She was begging several times to be put in charge of the junior shooters. So not everybody accepts that as demotion, you know. Somebody is, I don't know if they'll put her ever in that position, yeah. But for me, that was just to prove that that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I know it's not very popular, it's not very much practiced around, and so on. But if we are looking to make a difference and to make things better, that's the way. And I think it makes absolute logical sense that you want the best one to be there where people are beginning to learn.
Yeah.
Because that kickstart has to be the right kickstart, not the wrong one.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lucky.
Thank you, Dodo.
Kerry Ann down in Tasmania. Joe will just unmute Kerry. There we go. Kerry, you're on.
I unmuted. Toto, so lovely. I've heard so much about you, and it's really nice to see you and listen to you. I have really enjoyed it. My question is, I have heard many times from Joe, world's best practice. So everything that we have heard tonight, what you have said, with all the questions, world's best practice hasn't really changed. So it's still all about balance lifting, sighting, breathing, all methodology, everything we've spoken tonight. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You know, I'll give you a little story. I was with a totally black hair, you know, back then, and working with the Danish national team. And then there was a guy who was assigned to us as a national team group. At least in that time, to me, he looked like an old man, but obviously he wasn't. I mean, he was younger than I am now, but he had a gray hair, and he was a sports psychologist. And he said, well, after graduating from university and so on, 2 years later, he was granted a scholarship to go to China to specialize for 3 months with the national table tennis team of China. Ping pong, what you call it. Yeah. And he said, Well, he said, I was so excited, you know, going 3 months to China. I mean, we are talking back 80s, you know, China was still closed, and it was with a lot of mystique and that Far East yin yang philosophy, and you know, and all this, and thousands and thousands of years mystic culture, and not to mention that they were the best in that table tennis in the world, and so on. I say, 3 months, what a fantastic opportunity. I say, so first day when I arrived there, and when we got to the sport hall, came all athletes. They were, you know, lined up, and came coach and said something, and they all, yeah, I mean, this is right. Our good friend from China, former head coach Wang Yifu. I mean, when he was a head coach, when he walked around, everybody was, you know, giving him respect and so on. And coach came, and they all showed the respect. He took the ball, he kicked it, and showed some kind of technique or whatever, yeah, hitting the ball. And then he said, then they started doing hop, boom, hop, boom, again and again and again and again and again and again. And he said, after 3 days, I wanted to return back home to Denmark. I didn't know what should I do next 87 days. You know, old Latins have a sentence saying, repetitio est mater studiorum. Repetition is mother of studying. Whatever we want to speak about advanced programs, methodologies, and so on, we need to speak about them. We need to use them as tools. But everything comes back to training. And we can't develop if we don't have enough training time. I often make a joke, and I say to people, okay, if you are jogging 3 times a week, do you think that you can beat Usain Bolt on 100 meters? I don't think so. So if your athletes are training twice a week, they stand a chance against some of the world best, like a snowball in the hell, you know? They don't stand a chance. Do we need those enthusiasts, those recreative shooters? Yes, I love them. I adore them. But don't try to pretend that you're going for a high-level athlete, for a high-level competitor, by doing 2 or 3 times a week exercise. I don't know if that was enough explanation. Yeah.
I think it was excellent. And everyone was a little bit confused over those words because they were new words, but it hasn't changed really. I like the words now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, last one on my screen here is David. He's been very patient. Joe will just unmute you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
sure.
oh, good. Sorry, I've got earphones on. This has been a very exciting evening. I was supposed to be cooking tart tatin, and I haven't. I've had to put it in the fridge because I've been distracted by such exciting, passionate ideas. I'm not sure I've got questions. I've got more thoughts and too many things to think about. The one that springs to mind is, and Todo might relate to this as having a medical or engineering background, that everything in the world follows a bell curve, and every single skill and attribute of a high-level athlete, pianist, opera singer, golfer, whatever. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. Every single component of that follows that bell curve. What it means is that perhaps the Olympic champions and the world champions and the European champions are those for whom genetics, environment, and learning have coincided to enable them to achieve at that level. And there is this huge bunch of people who might get close to it, but never quite achieve it. It doesn't demean them, it doesn't make them any less, but they don't have all of that. So does that mean that all of our coaching efforts and all of our passion for achievement should have a wider goal than simply being an Olympic champion or a European champion or a world champion? Because there's only this number of people who will ever be able to achieve that, but there are this number of people that could be bloody good. I don't know. I'd like Todo's thoughts on that, because it's been an enlightening experience.
Thank you very much for your actually question or comment. During all the years working with the various countries and various cultures and various athletes and so on, I never outlined as a goal that some of those athletes should become European champions or world champions or Olympic champions. That was never a goal. A goal was to learn to deliver performance. Because yeah, sure, if your Olympic committee would hear me, you know, they would say, why did you bring this moron to talk to you? Yeah, we want medals. But what is older, egg or chicken? I don't say that I'm right, but what I choose as a coach, it is to you know, put front of the athlete a goal of performing instead of running after something that is called medal. Of course, if athletes' development is good enough to compete for the gold or for any medal for that matter of fact, and if athletes' performance is good for it, what the heck? So instead of focusing on medals or positions on podiums or on the ranking list or whatever, yeah, I think it should be much easier for the athletes to focus on themselves. Because okay, if you will allow me a few minutes more, I know that it's late at your end. Things on which we can't influence, that's our surrounding at the shooting range during the competition. The only thing that a shooter, athlete, can have impact upon, it is upon himself. And that's the only thing that he or she can control. They can't even control the gun if they don't control themselves. The entire process of teaching them or coaching them, it was and it always will be how they to learn to control themselves. What they think, what they do, how do they deliver. Because they can't control what shooter next to them is doing and how many points shooter next to them is scoring. And that's not the name of the game. The name of the game is what I can do, how much I can control myself, how much I can be better. I'm better, of course, if I'm more in control of myself and if I know what I'm doing. That's the name of the game. Medal. Unfortunately, we've seen some medals disappearing within a split second in any sport. Sometimes it's a fraction of the second, or it's a fraction of millimeter, or whatever. Nobody can deny that there shouldn't be something which is called also luck. Yeah. But not that we should put everything in the hands of, you know, believing in luck. So I don't know if I got close to the answer to your question.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. And some might say, Toto, that luck is when preparation and timing collide. But Vlad, I think you've got a question you want to ask as well.
At the end, Toto, I would like to ask you two simple questions. How long does it took for you to understand that you have good coaching skills? How long it takes for you to get the knowledge in coaching and really feel that you are coach now?
Vladimir, I'm very arrogant. It took me. No, I don't think I realized that. But what I realized that I wanted to do it. And then I followed every step on the way, really and really, again, saying to educate as much as I could. Imagine, and you know that very good, back then we didn't have internet. I mean, sometime later came fax machines, you know, which was speed of the light in communication. Even we had to wait on reply sometimes a couple of days, you know, if the other person got to the office and read the fax that we've sent it and so on. So in those days, it was really, really hard to get hand on qualified material to study. Today, everything is on the palm of the hand, and we are enjoying this meeting, which was quite imagination, let's say 10 years ago, not 30 or 35 years ago. So all what I could do, it is follow my dream and my goal. And honestly, and that's no pathetics in what I'm saying. The only thing that I could do, it is control myself. And that meant educate myself as much as I could.
Okay, in this case, I will drop my second question, because second question was, as coaches and athletes achieving plateaus of their performances, and they try to find a way to go further, to be better. And as a coach, did you feel sometimes that you are here and you need to do something differently?
I did. And a good thing for the coach, I believe, is to take a break. You know, because we are like a wine. You know, we're getting older and we're getting better.
Very good. Thank you.
So Joe, before we wrap it up, do you have a question you want to send to Toto, and then I'll thank him and thank everyone for being part of this?
Yeah, I'm not going to actually have a bit of a question. It's more of a statement. I've had two great mentors, or three actually, in the coaching career that I've had so far. Toto, one of them. Vladimir, worked very closely, hand in hand, and Lucky down there. I just want to say that everything that you've sort of instilled, all the three coaches that I've had influence on me. We have, you know, I'm very passionate about coaching. It's something that I've been doing for a while, maybe not very well, but nevertheless, it's something that I've continually pursued for what I started as a coach nearly 30 years ago, but it's only in the last years like a wine. I've matured a little bit more with knowledge and listening to great voices, and just trying to pass on the message to the rest. As a national development coach for coaches as well, that's what I've been trying to do. But education doesn't stop, and you've reinforced that. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. It was incredible, as it was that whole week that we spent together. Thank you very much, and I hope that we can continue dialogue amongst coaches.
Thank you,
okay.
everyone.
Thank you very much for inviting me for this meeting. It was a really pleasure meeting some new faces and having opportunity to talk to you and hear your opinions and your questions. Unfortunately, for you, I was speaking most of the time, but okay, that's what Joe asked me to do. I wish to all of you really a lot of good success in the future, and keep safe, all of you and your families, from this COVID-19. And yeah, maybe sometimes we'll have opportunity to see us again.
Yeah, I think on behalf of everyone, Toto, same to you. Stay safe through COVID. This is part of a program we've had here in Pistol Australia to try and engage people during COVID lockdown. Obviously, ranges have been closed for quite some time. They're starting to open around the country now, and I think nearly every state is back being able to go to the range. But we had an extended period where people were kind of locked out, and we've done webinars, we have a game show going, we've got a live show we do every couple of weeks, just trying to engage our community and get them all loving pistol shooting and loving being part of Pistol Australia team and community. So, but we really thank you for coming on, and I want to say obviously best of luck going forward for you, and best of luck for Montenegro. I think they've still got to qualify for Tokyo, but that tournament's coming up very, very soon in the water polo.
Yeah, let's see. Okay. All the best. Goodbye.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Joe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good